just some person continue. No, no, yes.
No, no, yes. Okay. Okay, great.
How about that one? Let's do that. Hello everyone. So welcome to the second part of the SlideWiki tutorial. I will give a quick summary of what we just discussed. I think I see some new people. So are you a new person? If you raise your hand, I think yes, right? So then I'll also give a quick summary of what we just discussed. So I am Klaas, Ben is sitting over there, Victor is also part of our development team. We have matching t-shirts and we do advertising, but it's not commercial. We're not a company, we're part of an EU project. We work at universities and we develop SlideWiki as a free open source system that everybody can use, and you can adapt the system itself because the source code is on GitHub, so you can create your own model or plugin or microservice or improve the system, which would be very nice. Then let's go to GitHub. So this is our GitHub repository. And if you go to the root, yes, so the SlideWiki project, the platform is the main user interface. We showed before the break, and then there are several parts of the systems, microservices for storing presentations, for storing users, which makes it highly scalable, because we have the system is broken up into smaller parts and you can put each part in a different server. So that is technically how it's built. So we use mostly JavaScript. You see, JavaScript. And then, of course, HTML. And some of the system is built in Python and Java, because we use microservices and they run in a virtual machine, in a Dockerized container. And then if you want to connect to SlideWiki or build an extension, you can use your own programming language. So you can use C or C# or anything. So that's maybe a bit off topic for the tutorial. So in the tutorial we want to show how you can use SlideWiki when you're giving workshops in your business or when you give courses at a university, but also for elementary schools it is free to use, basically for everyone, and it's also aimed at, especially at educators, so elementary, secondary and higher education. We have partners all over Europe, and half of them they test the system, they use the system in education, in universities, elementary schools, middle schools, etc. And the other half does development, and some do both. So this is what we are, the gap that SlideWiki is starting to cater to support. So you have Wikipedia for encyclopedias, for knowledge basically, OpenStreetMaps, which is also open, GitHub for source code, which is free for everybody to use, it's open and you can see the source code, and you have good version management. And then with SlideWiki we want to do the same for educational material. So it has version management, it's open for everybody to use, and translation, which is coming soon, questions and exams. Yeah, connections to learning management systems. Alright, so again the overview, we import stuff, then you can edit it, reuse it, you can collaborate with other users. So you have social collaboration. If somebody edits your presentation, you get notified. You have enrichment via Teams, videos, diagrams, code, and then you can present it, share it on social media, and download it as PDF or EPUB or SCORM and use it in your learning management system like Canvas or Blackboard. Central concept is that we have decks of presentations, and then you can also have subjects. So you can structure parts of presentations as a separate thing, so a separate topic, and then the separate parts can also be individually be reused. So some user could say, I'm only interested in the motivation part of this presentation, so I will copy that to my own presentation. You have creators, contributors, and user groups. In a user group, you can together work on a presentation. Searching, lots of options for searching. Let's see. If you want to try this yourself, then the presentation is accessible on this URL, and you can also use your phone to navigate to it. Yeah, and this is the system. So I am currently also viewing this presentation on SlideWiki.org, and we have a website for the project itself. So what is also interesting for you maybe is that we have competitions in that you create, you put your material on SlideWiki, and you can, for example, earn 500 euros because the presentations are very good and very accessible. So it helps us to get content on SlideWiki, and then you get rewarded for doing this. Also, we have sub-trials, so we have several institutes that do trials, but then we have, for example, trials in Lithuania, where also educators, they have several courses using SlideWiki. I'm not sure if it is still open, but then check the website. So if you are planning to give a course, then you could apply for this, and you get basically you get funding for putting your material on SlideWiki as part of the project. So I'm looking at Marie Carmen is also in the SlideWiki project, and she is the organizer of the trials of the institutes that use SlideWiki in education.
So the competition is still open? So.
Yes, the competition is still open, yes. So once you use SlideWiki and get funding, then you know who to talk to. Alright, then let's go back where we left off before the break. So you can sign in, you have settings, you can have a user profile, an organization, and a biography. You can allow Google and GitHub to do a single sign-on, which saves you some time. You can connect your account to your Google account, your SlideWiki account to your Google account. Yes, that's this. You have a login provider. So you see Google Plus and GitHub. And we probably add more in the future. We have user groups. So I made a user group with Ben in it, and Ben was able to edit the slides I am currently showing here. I think the first slide. So if you go to the leftmost now. Oh no, that's why not. Well, you have to trust my word for it. He edited the slide before the break, and I have witnesses here, so that's good. All right. You have notifications, so if you collaborate on slides, you get notified if someone else made an edit to your presentation. Or if somebody downloaded it, so you can see here the download symbol, or if somebody made a copy of your presentation. And that's interesting because then that person might have extensions or might have an update to the presentation. Or maybe someone is working on the same topic as you are, and it's nice to then connect maybe because you're in the same field. So there are 4 ways to create decks. We already showed that we could upload PowerPoint. You can also just create a deck from scratch in SlideWiki. You just create without any slides, and then you add slides in SlideWiki. You have the import. You can copy text from other people, so when you search and you find something interesting, you say, I want to make a copy of this presentation, and then you can edit it for yourself and show it. And well, in the sense of creating decks, if you have some presentation, you can also select specific slides or select specific presentations from other users that you then import into your own deck. And that is very easy because you might create a presentation based on 3 of your colleagues, 3 presentations from your colleagues. So you combine everything into one. So let's see if you go to the tab. So this is something we imported. Go back to the same. But now we want to create a presentation from scratch, maybe. Now that just go to slide.com in the tab. Because I want to show this later. Alright, so we start from the home screen, and then you click on Add Deck, so the button at the very top. And then we have a title, Scratch, from scratch. And we say language is English, like this. And then we can have a selected theme, so let's do high contrast. So instead of having black text on a white background, we have a set of themes, so styling you can use to make your presentations more personal or pretty. And then instead of selecting a file, which we did before, we now just create a deck. And I think you have to check again that you say what I am going to create is Creative Commons license, so it is open for everybody to reuse. So it's not, for example, illustrations from a book that you cannot you cannot reproduce, you cannot upload without the permission of the author. So everything you put in there must be under that license. All right, so now we have the deck view, and you see that already one slide has been created. A new slide, and it has a title and a bullet, and I guess then we want to edit it. That's the headline, and we add some bullets maybe. Yeah, all right, and then we save it. It looks very easy. It's not always that easy because it's very hard to make a slide editor in a browser. But this is trivial and this works. So maybe let's go back to the main presentation. So we will continue work on this, I guess. So we created a deck, we did a title, language description, and that was it. We already uploaded PowerPoint. The nice thing is that in PowerPoint, if you have speaker notes, so you have text for that tells you what you have to present, what you have to talk about. For example, if you have a slide with an image, then this will also be imported. So, for example, Abby, she said she has speaker notes that tell her about the title slide, and then if you go to the next slide, there are different speaker notes. So this is about the general certificate for secondary education, and this is the first thing that you will say if you present this, that there are some statistics. So this is also imported from PowerPoint. Let's go back to the presentation. So this is what we just did. You had the tech teams, and you had you could upload files. And you could see the upload progress, which we saw before the break. One thing to note is that the older PPT files are not supported. So PPTX is, which has been standard for 10 years, I think. But then the earlier versions cannot be uploaded. But this is easily, they are easily converted to PPTX with the new format. We selected the theme. So this is during upload, you can select the theme, but also when you already have a deck, you can change this. So if you go to our deck from scratch, fourth tab, we click on the deck title from scratch, and then we click, we edit it. Oh, sorry, we edit it. We want to edit properties of the entire presentation, and then let's say we have a creamy theme. So that would look very pastel probably. Yeah. And now you see that it has a different look. Looks very pretty. Then if you go to the first tab, which is our presentation that we imported, we go to the, again to the editing the entire presentation, deck edit. We click on the title here. Yes. Yes, that's the title. And then you get an overview of the entire deck. And then also here we want to do preview. Yes, now if you click on the second slide. And now if you look at the PowerPoint version. Now it's on the other window.
Yes, it is.
You see? Now this is what the original looked like. And we were able to recreate it in SlideWiki somehow using the themes. And we can then again change this theme easily as well. All right, please. Let's go back to the presentation. You see? Choices. We have many choices. So deck view, which we already showed several times. If you go back to the first tab, to our import a deck, you can see that if you click on the deck title, import test, this is the deck view. So the first thumbnails of the first 3 slides are shown, and the language, the number of slides in this deck, the number of times someone forked it, so copied it using this button, how many people liked it, how often it was shared on Facebook or Twitter, and the downloads. Yeah, so this is, they correspond to these icons that are the respective actions. So if you click on this, then we like our own imported deck. Yeah, like this. And then you see that I like, yeah. And the sharing is also, you see on the social. You can even share by email, which is very old-fashioned, I think. We should use at least Twitter. And then we get many likes on Twitter, and we'll be very happy, I guess.
Also, one important thing is that those metrics are later on taken up by the system to judge the popularity of a deck. That has been an issue before, that people told us, well, maybe I create a great deck, but then somebody comes up, forks my deck and writes something in there that's not even right. So that's plain wrong. How do the people know that there's still the original version? So when you search for a deck, the most popular deck will be presented first, and that gives you an intuition as to where the most is going on. It doesn't really indicate where the best quality is at, but for example, you know this from Facebook, where the most likes are. A lot of people liked it, but you can also see and this will be an interesting metric in the future, how many people forked a deck, or how many translations are there. And that should give a fairly good assessment of the quality of a presentation, because if you see that a presentation was forked and translated to 5 languages, then at least people from 5 countries thought, we want to teach with that. So those metrics can give more or less indications of what is going on with content.
So, indeed, I guess if people reuse your deck, reuse it via the fork button, then that is more important than how often it is shared on Facebook or Twitter. I was just...
May I ask you, if I am in my account, I can see my presentations, and they are immediately online. Yes. And what about search engine? Do they immediately appear in the search engine? For example, we created 1 or 2 slides. You see, somebody insert search word test ballot 1, and they can find this presentation at once. Yes, it is in search engine, and they can search for it, copy it, and everything. Yes, is it so?
Yes, up until now. So it's a very good question, because we have been looking at how people, if they create a presentation, then often they want to have it in a draft version, not publicly findable and accessible. So in this version, still everything you create will be immediately published.
Immediately findable, yes?
Yes, but in the update that we will have in 2 weeks, then you must explicitly click the button publish.
Ah, I see.
So
I think it is. It would be important, because for this purpose I may use it as corporate, for example, and to make it public if I like it. Really?
Yes, definitely.
So it's class is on there, by the way. You can show it.
ICTERI-2018.org?
That's testing. Yeah.
Testing.
So so this is our testing instance. It's the server we put the stuff for the release on to test it before we push it then to slidewiki.org.
I see. Thank you.
And thanks for your question. Yes.
So you can see there are no unlisted decks, because Klaas is a very open-minded and open source guy, so he doesn't have anything unlisted. But with the update in 2 weeks, you will be able to choose if the deck is listed or not listed. So if somebody has the URL to your deck, he or she can go to that thing still if it's unlisted, but it won't show up in any suggestions or the search.
I see.
Which is something that we have blatantly stolen from YouTube. You can also do that, put up a video, share it with friends, but it won't show up in the overall search results. And if you want to, for example, try to make money with it, then you publish it.
Yes, I see.
And that's exactly the same. Okay,
Oh, I didn't say it.
yeah.
So you have if you have your presentation, you edit its properties, and then you can publish or unpublish. And then I have to see it. So you see unlisted, now is a red button. And then if I go to my decks, it is now gone. But it's still in my unlisted decks. So these are draft versions. So if you're working on something and you don't want other people to see it, then you can...
That is unlisted, yes?
Yes.
Unlisted, they are not published yet, and I can improve it still. Yes? We made it unlisted, So we may improve it still, and then to make it published. Yes?
Yes. Thanks for the question. So this is exactly what we were working on for the past 2 months.
May I ask you, how you handle the situation where the two people change the one slide simultaneously? And for example, I am not put the button publish yet, but I wanted to save my changes before I get the new version.
Thanks for your question. So that's also a very good question. Because we have version management, so every time you save a slide, it will be recorded. But indeed, if two people edit the same slide at the same time, then there is currently no notification. But once you save it, then it gets stored anyway. So then there will be 2 revisions, 2 new versions of the slide, and the person who saved last will have the most recent version. So, and then you will probably find out because it'll be shown in the activity feed. So let us demonstrate it. Then if you go to a presentation. So you will here see that someone edited a slide or deck, and then well, let's go to the first slide and edit it. And just yes, that's a good one. And then if you scroll down, we have below every slide we have a history tab, and this shows you that the original creation event, and then if the slide gets edited, it's explicitly recorded. But if 2 people work at a slide together, then I think we would be able to detect it. But we have not yet come up with a resolution for this, like a mechanism to resolve how people get notified. What we could do is, for example, if you click on edit, then the slide gets locked and nobody else can edit it. But still, because it's on the internet, you could get racing conditions because there might be milliseconds difference. And, so that is something we are still trying to solve. But indeed, it's a very good question.
But at least we are very confident that we can somehow improve the situation, because we can at least detect that 2 people are saving a version that originates from one common ancestor. And in that case, we can at least do something for the last one who saves the slide, to say, okay, the slide was saved, but please note that there's a more recent version now, and that's not yours. So, the other thing was that we had a student project for an online merge editor, graphical even, there was a graphical editor, where that was exactly meant for those situations, when you have what tech people call a merge conflict, so the computer doesn't know how to bring that in the right order, then you have an editor and can say, okay, this part is good, this is mine, and I also want this part from the other person. So, but it's a very complex thing to develop as a web application, and it was a master's student project, so we are trying to bring it in as fast as possible, but it's a rather complex component, so that might take some time.
Yes, thanks for your question. So this is what Ted, our student, has been working on. So you see the revised version that Ben just created, that got the tag, and then the original you see that what has been changed is highlighted. So the original was tech instead of, well, it's both pronounced tech. But this is tech from later, and not from technology. So you have additions, modifications, deletions, so you can check or uncheck what you want to see. And this is, so let me retrace my steps. This is a feature, not a bug. So the 504 is a very nice way of telling that it's. So what I clicked on here was this button, so then you can compare two versions. But you can also see the original version, and I think that is what is currently a feature, not a bug. But at least normally that should work. But this is the demonstration effect. So if I show it, then it doesn't work. And then if I, for example, edit it again, or I edit it also, because Ben just edited it, then go to the tag, then in the history we'll see this new revision as well. And I can also say, well, I don't want this. I say revert it. So I revert it to an earlier version, and then we got Ben's version back. So that is the usual. That is how we handle revisions.
Because what's not in the backlog, not right now, is real collaborative editing, like you know from Google Slides. That may be a project in the future, but that is a rather complex thing for its own. And as I said, we are more focusing on being a repository and a collaboration, well, yeah, collaboration platform. I mean, sharing platform for educational material instead of putting the instead of, well, we are actually not capable of developing tools this fine-grained as the Google development does. So, thank you. I'm done.
All right. So we continue with the presentation in the second second. Oh no, no.
That one?
Yeah. So this is a bit problematic. If you're a power user and you open lots of tabs, then you get lost. But this is common for internet usage. Do you know when you look up an article on Wikipedia, and then 1 hour later you have 50 tabs open? That is the same what can happen with SlideWiki. So it's very dangerous. Yeah, so we just discussed deck view, then deck editing. We also discussed before the break, because we have users and groups of users we can give access. Maybe we show it again. So if you go to the first tab, import test, you click on that, then let's make Ben again a user that can access this. So now maybe we directly add him as a user, and not the user could be created before. So that yeah, so that's good. And then we save it. We go to Safari, where the different browser where Ben is logged in. Maybe refresh the page, or we'll go to the next list and share next. And that is the presentation. We just upload it and give it access to. All right. Then we continue with the features. With the third. Yeah. All right. Copying and forking decks. Well, copying. So forking is a concept from GitHub, which I think the added meaning is that you always can trace back to the original presentation, And that is also something we try to support, that you can always find the original where you forked from, and that the person who created the original presentation can pull your changes in his or her presentation in the original. So let's have a quick demonstration. If you go to, yes, so the button for deck is just above the deck tree, the navigation. And
so I will use my card.
Oh yes, because it's my presentation, Ben will now fork a version for himself. Yes, so forking means creating a copy of the deck, but it's a little bit more than that. So, is this the new one?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, it's mine.
Yes, so Ben is now creator, and he has full edit rights. He can do whatever he likes with the presentation. So you can see the activity feed that Benjamin Wolf created, forked the deck, created a new deck, and there is a link to this presentation, to the new version. So this is Ben's SlideWiki interface. Yes, and you can see that is his user account in Safari. Then if we go to Chrome again, where I am logged in. Version.
Yes. Here I want to see the. Great. Thank you, Steve. Okay, and now we get to the activity of that thing.
No, so this is your version, right? Yes. In the activity feed, we can now see that Ben for this deck created. If you click on the link, you can see that now we go to this deck. Now maybe I want to edit Ben's version, so if you click on edit, because I don't have access right, you see you can only view this deck. To make changes, you must ask the owner to grant you edit rights. Because Ben created a copy of my deck, it doesn't mean I can edit this copy. I must be explicitly assigned as a collaborator. So you can request edit access, and in that case, Ben will get an email that says that I want to have edit access as well. Yeah. So that is how this is handled. Let's go back to the main presentation. Yeah.
So one thing that may also be added is that the diff editor, so the diff view but with editing capabilities, can be used to merge different forks together. So if you find something on another fork that you find interesting for your teaching, you can then pull it in. That's of course already possible today, because you just copy the slide. What you can do is you can copy the whole HTML of the slide. Slides in SlideWiki are HTML, and the editor has the option of showing the raw HTML code, and you can of course take the raw HTML and copy it into your presentation. But we were also looking for a concise and easy way to pull in changes that others did on forks of your presentation.
The deck explorer is something we already discussed, so I'll skip it. Yes, so this is an overview of the main panels when you view a presentation deck. So on the left we have the deck explorer, and just above that the navigation. So the title is a hyperlink, and if you click on it you go to deck view, and if you click on the elements in the deck explorer you go to individual slides. You can also click directly on thumbnails. Then on the right there's the deck info activity, which we also showed before. So you have the creator and the activity feed. So maybe quickly show that in our live deck. Yeah. So deck explorer, thumbnails and decks, and then here's the creator and the activity feed. And if you look at the entire deck, if you have the deck view, then you can also say, I want to create a presentation room. So normally you start a presentation using this play button, which is also here. And then you see you can just present it in a browser. But then if you go to deck view, there's also a beta feature, like an experimental feature. If you start a presentation room, then people can join this room. So maybe make it ICTERI. And they are limited to 100 people. Then it's the speech recognition. So we say we will be talking in English. So then your voice is transcribed. So there's a microphone on my laptop, and then people can also join outside the classroom. So it's like an online course as well. So if you make it a bit, when you scroll down, scroll down for the transcript. So let's see if it catches my voice. Yeah. So you see this is transcribed, and then people can join this presentation. So if you click on that button.
Oh, sorry.
No, not Twitter. I don't want to see Twitter. Yes, yeah, it's a bit hidden. Yes. So you can scan the QR code and join the presentation as a participant. And then then let's see what we this is basically my account giving this presentation. But then if you go to your account in Safari, then you can join the presentation. You can join it as like a participant, for example, a student or someone watching this presentation, or as an online person. So when it goes to this specific deck, which we now are showing in the presentation room. Refresh it.
No. Wait.
Oh no, but there are two versions of the deck.
Yes, and the problem is that it takes you to the fork version and not the original one. So it's
well, anyways, we are in technical difficulties. But normally, it's a beta feature, so we say it's experimental, and therefore it might sound, well, in this case it doesn't work, but normally it works. So if you are an audience member, you can ask questions, which show up here. But you can also, as a presenter, you can ask the audience to complete a task. There's no audience to complete a task, but normally you would, the audience would get a prompt, an interface that says you have to do this, and if you complete it, then you click a button, and then for the presenter you will see who has completed a task. How many people have completed this task. Yeah, so that's the presentation room. Let's get back to the original
controls, you could do that stuff.
To the top left? No, right, and to the third. Yeah. Activities, so people can comment on slides, and so they can ask questions about slides, or they can make suggestions for improvements. And you can see when someone created a deck or edited a presentation deck. Any questions so far? All right. Maybe we show commenting on the slides quickly, or so if you go to the first tab again, to our imported deck, you click on the slide, or you can also comment on the entire deck. So we have a tab, and then you say add comments. Yes. I very much like Ben's edit that he made tech instead of technology, because if if you then go, so there's now a comment on this specific slide, and you can also see it here in the activity feed, and then when you go to the entire deck overview, it also shows you that someone commented on this slide. So on the deck level, on the entire deck level, you have a nice overview. Then we continue with the presentation, I think. Yes, so these are important controls for each deck and slide view. You have these controls to add slides, to attach them. So attaching means reusing existing slides. Add a subdeck manually, so then you structure your presentation, or you include, you attach the entire subdeck that's already on SlideWiki. You can duplicate slides for convenience, and you can delete slides. Deleting entire decks is not possible, because we do not want people to encourage that once they have given a presentation that they delete the deck, but you can delete all individual slides, or you can invest the deck. So there is some room for that. So let's go to the user interface again, to the first tab. So you can see here that at the deck view level, oh no, I don't have edit rights for this, right? You see, so it's disabled. I don't have edit rights for this deck. But then if you go to the deck title, or you edit your for, that's also fine. So you see now the buttons are enabled. So maybe we want to duplicate this, and we make version 2. Yes, and we save it. So now you have 2 slides, and one is a copy of the original title slide. You can add a blank slide as well. So then you get a template, like a standard title and grid, but you can also select another template. So if you click on this, and you say, you scroll down, you say, I want the ACTA template, which is one of our partners in the project. You see that this is their standard template for creating new slides. And then we save it. And then a new slide is called new slide by default, and then we can also edit the title by double clicking on it. Yes. All right. Okay, so now we maybe we attach a specific slide. So we say for my own decks I can select slides, but also from SlideWiki, so things that are already on SlideWiki. And again, we can search here, so make it accessibility. And then you get auto suggestions. Semantic Web Services, Sugan, our project leader, he has a nice slide on this. So we select the deck, but we want to have an individual slide. So you scroll down, Now you don't even not in the list. Yeah, so you say we now selected a presentation deck. Then you click on next, and then you see all slides in this presentation deck. And then we select one or multiple slides. So you see one of 36 slides selected, but you can select specific slides that you want to reuse in your own deck. Or you can select all of them. But no, we don't want. Yeah, oh yes, you can deselect all of them. All right. Then we say attach, and then you see that these slides from a completely different deck by a different user you might not even know are added to your own presentation. So the web thing accessibility guide, this slide has been attached. So this is not ours, it's made by, again, EA, or a good friend from Southampton. Then this is how you repurpose existing material. And this is on the slide level, but we can also attach an entire presentation deck. So that is, now just adding a deck means that you will, so that's no, that's fine. So you can add your own subdeck, right? And it will just create an empty basic deck. But then we can also select, maybe click on new slide. So you can have multiple levels of subdecks. So you can have subdecks. So here we search maybe for let's see what do we want to include now? Bitcoin, our previous example. So we do the Ethereum tutorial, which is quite large actually, and we attach it, and then we go to an edit screen, which is okay. So just save, cancel it. So this is something we will fix in 2 weeks. This is a feature, not a bug. Cancel.
Let's save.
Oh.
Let's see what happens.
No, I think we can wait a very long time. Yes. And then maybe click on the deck. Click on the deck title. So it's not yet here. Press refresh. Yes, it's a very large text, so it might take some time to show it. So we just blame our server. Yeah. So let's continue with the rest of the presentation. I think it will show up. So we will get back later to our example presentation. Yeah. Deleting the slide is something we haven't discussed. We don't want to encourage that, but it's also possible. Yeah, new slides have a default template with title and bullets. You can also select a different template. Once you have a presentation, you can download it. Yes, look at this. Your nicely imported presentation deck now has also a Bitcoin part to it. So now we can go to the bankers and earn a lot of money. So you see that the Ethereum tutorial is now part of the presentation and explicitly listed as a separate deck. And here we can still see where we left off. So this was the slide that Ben copied. This was the slide that we created from scratch. So if you click on it, on this one, you see this is where we applied the academic template from our partner. And then these are the slides we attached, we imported from IA. And then if you go down further, then this is the new subdeck we created from scratch. But all the way up, this is our attached deck, our imported deck that we imported from Alia, my colleague at Amsterdam. Yeah. Okay, so we now have this deck, and then we want to download it. We already showed how to present it, but then for educational purposes, you want to have a PDF out of it, or an EPUB, or SCORE, which is easily integrated into learning management systems, and HTML. So this is currently not perfect, let's say it politically, but in 2 weeks we will have a very nice HTML download option. So then you can download, you get a zip file with the entire presentation deck as HTML and images, and then you can also present the same thing offline. So you just download it from SlideWiki and you can present it offline, but still in your browser. So you use your browser as a player for your presentation. So then you have a backup, and you can have PDF. But let's not do the PDF now because it takes some time, and the internet connection might not be happy with that. All right, then we go back to the presentation, to our main presentation. Yes, that is where we left off. If you click on that, click in the window. Yes, so it needs to have focus for me to control it. Yes, then a very important part of SlideWiki is that you can edit your presentation slides as soon as you import them online. And we will again demonstrate that, I guess. So maybe we again go to your important tag. And let's see, let's edit something that was made by Ali. So let's say the Ethereum node, preface. Yes, so we edit it. Ali has a nice video, but we won't show it in edit mode because it confuses. And maybe we want to add some text box. So you click on here, text box, and we have a text box, and you can say hello, some content. Yeah, we save it. Oh yes, no. I mean, of course. So these are boxes like in PowerPoint, but because it's a web environment, it's sometimes hard to control. But basically, when you click on the borders, you hover over this element, and when you click on the borders, you can resize it. So if you click here, you can go up, and maybe you drag it from the corner. You drag it all the way to the left. So from here. Now, so you can click on it and then immediately drag it. But for resizing, if you now resize it to be very small, even smaller, you see then the content is automatically adjusted to this. We have a menu that is above each input element box, and you can say bring it to front, bring it to back, duplicate it. So no, okay. Well, maybe you first save it. So sometimes the editor is not happy with the flow of interaction, so we edit it again, and it doesn't work at all. Okay, then we edit a different slide. Oh no, it doesn't work. A little bit.
It doesn't want to.
Okay, so we edit a different slide. So sometimes, especially when you embed videos, sometimes there are problems. So that is the problem in that we have to compete with Google and Microsoft in making a very nice editor. But we want to do many things. So we try to make the editor as nice as possible, but it's very challenging to do this with little resources.
This is a whole, because it's a whole slide box.
No, but that's good. So let's see if you edit this one.
Okay.
So again, if you resize it, Then you see the content is auto-fitted, and then make it large again. If you click a little bit outside of the borders, you can, no, I mean, you go over input and a little bit outside, then you can drag it. Now that's resizing, so yeah, then you drag it. If you again click on the context menu, then we say duplicate. And now we have a duplicate, so that is also intuitive, I hope. And we then can delete it. Alright, let's save this slide and then continue. Yes, let's get back to the main presentation. Yes, so we just showed how the interaction works by clicking and dragging and resizing. Then we have the templates, which we showed before quickly, but maybe we show it quickly again. So if you go to the first leftmost tab. So yeah, just let's do it in Chrome. That's it. I don't have editors for this one. No, so if you go to the main presentation, and you click on import test, the original. So the origin of this is the import test. So we uploaded this on my account, and now we go back to the original. Here we click on the on slide, yes. Yes, and then we say edit. So this is apparently an old version, and then if there is a later version, you get notified. But you see, so also here you get notified. So apparently, I think I made an edit of the deck. So go to a slide. So we are now at the latest version of this deck. Then click on edit, and then click on templates, and then we can select, for example, 2 rows, 2 columns, and then we have a nice template for in case we want to compare 2 things with each other. So this is then this is a predefined template that you can use to edit. Maybe show another one. You go back, you go down. Then yes, we have the Open University theme. Come up. Then that has a background picture, and then you can edit a title and a subtitle if you hover over it. Yeah. Then you see these controls here. So these are controls for a document editor, similar to when you use Microsoft Word. So if you select some text, we can make it italic, underscore bold. We can have a different font. Comic Sans is always good. We can make the size larger. Or we can add nice color to it. We can also make it a heading of a specific kind. So we make it heading 1 maybe. Oh no, heading 4. So then it becomes a bit smaller. We can import special characters. So if you click on that one, yes. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So we select, instead of basic Latin, we select Cyrillic. And then we do it, yeah, that one looks nice, yeah. So, but of course if you have a Cyrillic keyboard and operating system, you can type this directly in there. If you select this text, and then we can say, align it to the right, inside this text box. And if you then resize the text box to the right, then it will stick to the part of the text box. Alright, so far so good. Then we go back in the so this is all for text editing, and then this menu, if you go back, this is more for adding content items. Yeah, so we just demonstrated the templates. It's good. Let's save the slide. we go back to the original presentation. We just showed several templates, but we added templates and we made the interface of templates much nicer. So in the update of 2 weeks, in 2 weeks we will update sitewiki.org and we will have more templates, and next to the option of overwriting existing content, you can also add a template to your existing content. So instead of removing everything on your slide, you will just overlay content on your slide. For example, if you have a footer and a header, like if you want to repeat these elements, you can then add it to content you already have, instead of deleting everything and then adding the template. So that gives you more freedom. Yeah. If you import from PowerPoint, then often the standard resolution is 960 by 720, which is very small for modern monitors. I think nowadays they support higher resolutions, like 720p or 1080p on large monitors. In sitewiki you can also change the size of the slide. So this slide is actually widescreen as compared to, can you click on the, yeah, this slide is widescreen as compared to the previous one. So you see these logos are larger because the slide has a lower resolution. And then in this slide, you see I just added something to the left and it's more widescreen. So how to do this in the editor is when you go to what we're currently editing. Yeah, well, this template is also widescreen, as you can see. So it is much more wider than it is as height. But then if you do cancel, and then we go to the one before that. We do edit again. We say properties, because the size is a property, the slide size. Change. Change slide, change size, and then you scroll down. We say widescreen 920 by 1080 pixels, which is like high res for many monitors. So now you see that this has become very small because there is much more room now on the slide. Then we save, and then we compare it to a similar slide from this presentation called issue. You see this is full screen, and then this will be part of the screen, so you can adapt this as well. Then let's continue with the main presentation. Very importantly, uploading images is something we worked a lot on to get this right. When you upload images, you get a preview of the image, you select from your hard drive, and then you give it a name, a file name, and also an alt tag. So alt tag is for when, I think I explained it. Yeah. An alt tag is when you are visually impaired. Instead of the image, you will see a description of the image. And this helps accessibility a lot. And you have to say that this image has a certain license. And because we do not want to restrict people, there is the option of having a public domain license, or CC BY or CC BY SA. And then you have to check that you have the rights to upload the image. So maybe we show it again. So we go to the first tab, your presentation, and we edit this slide maybe because it doesn't have an image. We want to make it pretty or have a nice illustration. So we click on image, we choose a file, and then we go to desktop. So you click, and we go to my desktop, but it's a little bit lower. Yeah. and then you sort by date, because I use screen capture, so let me use a nice combination. Wait a minute. Capture my own screen, and then yes, then select the top one. So I made a screenshot of this screen, and now I will upload this screenshot. So if you open it, oh, you already opened it. You see that it's a bit meta, but I just made a screenshot of the file selection, and then this is the result. So this is the image we want. And you give it a title. So my operating system said that this is a screenshot at some time, but we say file selection maybe. And then the alt text should also be file selection or file selection in a certain file explorer.
And note that the alt tag is required, so you have to put in something. You have to put in something here too, because the alt tag is what the screen reader reads when it reads the slide. And because accessibility is important to us, we force users to put in an alt tag here. We are well aware that people could write something into there, but that would be another place where motivated users can improve the quality of a slide. At least this gives an indication that we really want every image that is uploaded to SlideWiki also has an alt tag, and that gives a sensible description of what's going, of what you see in the image.
Yes, an additional benefit is if you add an alt tag, then it can also be found when you search for slides. Then you find images that are tagged with a certain description. Oh yes, you mentioned screen reader. So a screen reader is a piece of software that allows visually impaired people to hear what is being shown on the screen. So it'll read, for example, if you apply a screen reader to this screen, it'll say image element, title, input box, file selection. So it'll basically read what you see. And then if we have alt text for images, then it'll say file selection when this is shown on a presentation slide. So then a visually impaired person will know that the slide has an image about file selection. Alright, so let's upload it. We say it's a public domain thing. So I now present a screenshot of my file browser to the public domain. So then it is, it has an input box around it, so you can drag it around. On the sides, so you can drag it around, and then if you, so then it automatically resizes it if you try to move it outside of the input box. But now I think you can move it outside. So now if you grab it. Then you can see, you can just show only half the image, for example. Alright, let's save it. And here we have our uploaded image. It's also pretty straightforward, but it could still be. Videos. So this is also a nice thing because it's on the internet. You can also embed videos on the internet. Maybe click on playing it. So now during the presentation you can also show video content. This is actually this video is about how to use SlideWiki, and we have many of these videos. So in this video, one of our colleagues will give an explanation. So there was some nice music, and you see how you create a profile picture. So that is Daria. She's our colleague, also from Amsterdam in the project. And then she is now showing how to edit your profile. Let's see. So If you want to add your own video, so just pause it, then in the editor, we click on the video button, and then we have to find the YouTube URL of the video. So maybe you go to YouTube. We click on the video that we want to include, and then you select the URL, or you can click the share button, you copy it, and then we go to the slide edit screen, and press paste, and then you can set the width and the height. You can enable privacy in head modes, you can do autoplay. You can say that you want to start at a specific time interval, and then we do OK. And that's it. And then we save it. And then this slide also has a video embedded. And this slide explains how you can use the editor. At the end of the presentation, I'll give a link to where you can find these tutorials. So then if you have interested colleagues, you can also point them to these tutorials. And also on sitewiki.eu, there is also a post that gives you an overview of all the tutorials. Yeah.
We'll go to the main presentation.
Alright, because it's in HTML, then for power users, you are able to directly edit the HTML. So maybe you want to have a very precise alignment of certain input elements, and you want to do it on the pixel level. So here, the HTML editor allows you to see that, for example, let's see, this is some text, H3, with text aligned to the left. You don't want to rely on web app owners for your data. And here you see the embedded YouTube video, which is an iframe with some width and a height, and a URL that points to the YouTube source of this video. Alright? That's a feature for people who are familiar with web development or know a bit of HTML. Then speaker notes. So below each slide you have an input element for speaker notes. So that is what you, as a presenter, want to know about the presentation, but you do not show to your audience. Yeah. So here we have Ali that had the original slide. He had speaker notes, and he said, "Well, let's look at eBay. If you're a power seller who has earned hundreds of good reviews, and for some reason eBay suspends your account." So that is what he will tell when he presents the slide, which we have overwritten with random stuff by now. Yes, so let's go back to the original. Content revisioning is something, I think we also already discussed this in detail. So you have the history tab that shows you all revisions and timestamps. You can look back at a revision. So you can look at the first version of a slide. You can have, you can try to merge two revisions, and you can revert to a previous version. So if you say, I want the slide that I created 3 days ago, you can go back in time and show that slide as the slide that will be shown to users. So you revert the change, go back. Yep. Any questions about this or comments? Or okay. Then presentation rooms is something we showed. That's also constantly being improved. So you can have questions from audience. You can give feedback. You can have a chat window. You have the audio transcription. your voice will be transmitted to people who are in your presentation room. So you can do online courses as well, because if you talk into the microphone of your laptop and you are the owner of a presentation room, people joining your presentation will be able to hear what you say. And this is then another nice feature, so we could embed YouTube videos, but we basically can embed anything you want. So we create an iframe and we say this URL, this website should be embedded in my presentation. So in this case I embedded the documentation of part of the ICTERI system. So we have microservices that are separate pieces of programming code, of software, that provide the user interface with the data it needs. And in this case, there is an iframe of this size. So this is the iframe, and you can interact with it directly. So you so Ben will show, for example, how you can use values that you send to this microservice. But this is just for illustrative purposes, so you can put other websites on here as well, and that website will work as you would normally view it in a browser, but now you actually show it in the presentation. So this can also be very powerful if you have a course on web design or on anything basically, and you want to show the website of some company or some institute that has additional information. You can just show it in your presentation, and you can then show different pages or navigate or show pictures, as opposed to copy pasting everything from that website. You can directly show it. And this is done in the left menu if you edit a slide. So we go back to our presentation that we're editing. Let's apply a template. Oh yes, let's delete it, because otherwise there's a lot of stuff on there. Yes. So we say other, so we can embed stuff. If you go back one slide, you can also. Yes, the mouse. We'll show mouse later on, because there was a question about this. So embed. And I think maybe we, so you can embed, you can use your own code for embedding, so you provide an HTML iframe code here, but then you can also link to the website and the code is generated for you. So maybe we go to the ICTERI website. See if that works. So it doesn't work on all websites, because sometimes websites, they prevent you from embedding it. So we copy the URL. We paste it, and we say add to slide, and maybe nothing happens. Oh yes, but it takes some time to load. So that is what will show embedded content, but maybe we have to save it first. Or it doesn't want to be included, that's also possible. Or maybe we try a different website, so we again edit it. Or we look at maybe the sitewiki.eu. You are now advertising your other EU project, I see. Or maybe the internet is not working. Well, no, because we loaded the ICTERI website, so we should. Yes, okay. So, Kyev Computer Club. I see that is an elite hacker, because he knows that website by heart. So, yes. So, no, wait. Save this. Cancel it. No, didn't show it. Okay. So we removed that one, the original iframe. We again go to other, embed. We paste the link to the Kyev Computer Club, But I mean, if there is one website that shouldn't be embedded, then it's the website of the Kyev Club, because they are about.
Does it even work with the URL right now? Or do we maybe have to re-import an iframe there?
No, it should work.
Yeah.
Well, but not at the moment. But at least it should. It works for part of the website. Because we are now giving a demonstration, it obviously doesn't work. It's because that is how the demonstration effect happens. So yes, let's show math, the later formulas. So we again edit the slides. We delete, and then we go to other. Yes. Math. And you see you have this the syntax, the tag format, tag syntax, and it generates a formula based on that, and then this is displayed on your slide. And then we save it, and it is shown as it is. Yeah. Right, then we go back to the original. Yes. Our GitHub project, we already showed it, I think. So if you want to contribute to SlideWiki, please do. You can use any language you want. If you create your own microservice that connects to SlideWiki, but takes some data, for example, you can ask for all decks and slides on SlideWiki, and then do some analysis on it. We have more nice goodies, more research, things that are interesting, I hope. So we already showed that you have tags. Tags are automatically recommended based on our NLP search. So we do natural language processing on content of slides. And then the content gets tokenized, and we know then what are the most important words in a presentation, and that gets suggested. We are still working on having in-page annotations of concepts in slides. So you select a piece of text in the slide, for example, NLP, the word NLP, and you say, this is something, this is an instance of class neuro-linguistic programming or of natural language processing, depending on what the actual slide is about. So you give meaning to text on the slide that is normally not known, because NLP could mean different things. And then you just select a piece of text and you make it explicit. You say that this is an animal, or this is a technology, or this is an institute. The video tutorials is what we already showed shortly. There is a YouTube playlist for the tutorials. And on SlideWiki.eu we have a post that lists all of these videos. And we are still working hard to improve SlideWiki all the time. So we will have translation soon, because we have been working on it for 1 year and a half. So when you have a presentation deck, you have a menu that says translate, and then you can translate it to Afrikaans, which is verbiage like Dutch, to Bavarian, Catalan, Chinese, Persian. Almost every language you normally use in translate.google. But instead we use the Microsoft Bing translation service, because that was somehow better on average.
And once again, this time it is not about development work, but it's actually a financial question, because using those translation APIs costs money. And there is a certain amount of translations you get for free, and we are currently in the process of sorting out how we should decide who to grant translation ability to. So we have a free amount that we can, free contingent of words that we can translate for free in a month, and we are trying to find out the best algorithm translation contingent to users who really are contributing to content on SlideWiki. And for example, putting text they want to have translated in a slide so it gets translated. And
yes, so the project has money for this, for doing lots of translations, but it ends in December. And then we have a special foundation to make SlideWiki continue, like Wikipedia or like OpenStreetMaps. And next week we will meet with the other partners in the project to discuss how we are going to do this. Yeah, multilingual user interface is something already existing. So we have Spanish, Italian, Dutch, German, Catalan, English, and then we want to involve people to help translate. So if you want to help in translating the user interface, then please contact me or anyone else in the project. So this is my email address. We use Transifex. So basically you create an account there, or you get invited, and then you get English, the English text that is normally on the website. For example, log in, create deck, share deck. This text is then presented to you, and you create a version in your own language, and then we update SlideWiki to have this language, and then the user interface will be in your language. So it's quite straightforward. Yeah, and you see we have an overview. So currently Serbian is the best supported language, and after that it's hard to read. Italian, German, and Spanish. So if you want to meet the Serbians in how well they translate, then please also join the translation effort. So again, 2 weeks we will have an even better system. So we will have the thumbnail directory, as we showed before. So you have a visual representation of what is on the slide. Then we have the publish and publish button, which is very valuable. And we have a markdown editor, which I also have open in a tab. So let's show that as well. So markdown is like an easy syntax for editing documents. Many people use it in forums or on GitHub. So you have special characters like an asterisk, and an asterisk denotes a bullet point. So this takes some searching in one of my Open 50 tabs. No, it's already shown. Here, there's also maybe a different Firefox. It's 3 bucks.
Is it on testing?
Testing, yes. So if you look for a tab of testing, maybe it's here. So
this is on testing.
No. Okay. Then in Firefox.
Okay.
Please stand by. Please stand by. We have 3 browsers open with about 100 tabs in total, and some browsers they also have different windows. So you have one window with 10 tabs, and a different browser, a different window with 2 tabs. So we're now looking for a very specific tab. You want testing? Well, I mean, if you click on the title, or does it work? Use it now. Refresh it. Oh, yes. Yes. So sign in.
Just use the other one?
Gmail. Yeah. Right. Go back to the next one. Yes. We go to edit. And there is a checkbox here. Allow markdown editing of slides. We save the deck. Save its properties. We go to a slide. Let's have do the first one. It contains a URL, which is nice. And then we have an extra button called Markdown. And once you click it, it gets this HTML content automatically gets transformed into a Markdown version of it. So it recognizes SlideWiki as a header 3 title. So you see 3 hashtags. Then normal text content, and then links. So these 2 links, they are represented by square brackets and parentheses. So that is Markdown syntax for hyperlinks. And then we have some images. So these 2 images are represented here. And again, a header 4 title, Horizon 2020. But this is less information that's on the actual slide because, for example, this has positioning, and the Horizon 2020 has a special layout. But then if you want to do quick editing of slides, you can use the Markdown. And as soon as we edit this, for example, we say this, then you get a Markdown version, and then let's save it. So then you get a kind of a document-based version of your the slide that used to be a Canvas slide, like a PowerPoint slide, which you can have absolute positioning of elements. And now everything is just in document mode. Each element has its own line. And again, we can edit this. So if you can click on edit, and then not the Markdown, but the normal editor. So we also have a mode that's...
oh, that's not working in testing at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know, some things with the deck service.
Is it
sorry, it's a testing system.
Oh yes, it's called, you see it's called testing, so then we have the right to have some things not work. Maybe press cancel. We have another server. It's not testing, it's experimental. It's even more. It's even more. Well, I mean, we experimental is stuff we built. We put on an experimental server, then we test it. Now we QA it, and then we put everything on testing, and then we actually test it, and then everything goes to slidewiki.org. Platform experimental.
Oh, yeah. I forget this all the time.
Yes. Right, and then do test 1, 2, 3. 1. So this is, for example, a presentation that I just used for a bit of testing, and then maybe click on some slides. Yes, we have to sign in. It's free. Yeah. If you just go to Chrome, to our normal test deck, you can see it show the slide. Yes. So let's take a normal deck with absolute positioning. So if you edit this, edit this, and then you can drag things around to have a precise positioning on the slide. But then we can also go to template, and you have empty document in document mode. So document mode basically means that you lose the ability to position elements, but instead you make your slide, you edit it as being a document. So we apply this template, and then we start typing. So we'll first click inside. Yes. So we just do typey, and then we do some insers. And we can still include pictures here, but they will all be like a picture in the document. So you can only say that it's left aligned or center aligned or right aligned. So maybe make that one center aligned, the first sentence. Yeah. Alright. And then upload a picture, an image. Yeah. Do the, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yes. Type really, yeah, very good. Alright, then we save it, and we click on present. You know, so this is what it looks like. There's not really a boundary of the slide, of the presentation slide, but it's a document mode. So this is what it looks like when you present it. It's a quick solution for having a lot of content and not bothering too much about whether it looks too pretty. So you can also copy from MS Word. And then you can copy entire documents and show them as presentations, basically. Similarly, you can copy from PowerPoint to SlideWiki directly if you're inside with it. So that is also an easy way of getting content from PowerPoint quickly into SlideWiki. So you just copy-paste a text box from PowerPoint. Alright, let's So that is coming in hopefully 1 or 2 weeks. And that is the end of the tutorial, I guess. Any questions? Or suggestions or improvements?
Actually, the questions are regarding the ideology of SlideWiki, not the technical details. They are perfectly well. The question is, it means that SlideWiki is like a rating. It can provide a rating of lectures. And what if the lecturer gives wrong explanation of something? And everybody does use the same slide with wrong interpretation of the thing, and then occasionally reveals that it is wrong position. And everybody does like a group use the same slide. How do you deal with this? And how do you deal with the situation that there are some popular authors and they are not popular, but they are good, but they are not popular? How to deal with this?
Thanks a lot for all the good questions. So these are things we are also designing as we build the system. With regards to correcting mistakes in slides, then it's, I guess, similar to Wikipedia, but not as advanced as Wikipedia. So you can have comments on presentations. So you can say this is wrong or this is a right slide. And also, then if you go to the interface, we have sources. So you can say, for example, this slide is based on a PDF or a website. So you can check whether it's correct. If there is something incorrect here, then with comments, people can say, well, this has to be edited. Or they can make their own version. Or you could report the slide. So there is a report button. And you can say, it is copyright or spam. We should add a button that says,
wrong description or something is wrong with the slide. But
yes.
It's not about the copyright, it's not about the issues, it's about nobody defined this as you defined here. Just like who defined this
this topic as you defined. And it also can cause a situation when somebody can introduce some crazy ideas. And no one will check the idea. And
Well, that's
it's like an idea of crowdsourcing as well.
well, that's the basic idea of crowdsourcing. Yes, and I was among the people that went when Wikipedia came up. Didn't think that it would work. I actually thought the trolls would be the majority and just destroy the system. But it turned out that at Wikipedia there is a greater number of people that have a real interest in presenting something true there than there are even paid trolls that try to create a false reality. So what we are addressing here is in some kind of sense a basic question towards this whole wiki idea, right? And I admit that we see nowadays that the most popular thing, for example, if you take YouTube, the most popular thing doesn't need to be the best thing or the truest thing. We saw this, and it's a thing that even platforms like Facebook struggle with, as we all know, in recent times. But we at least have the hope that it's a little bit more going into the direction of Wikipedia, because Facebook and YouTube are platforms that are used in a casual way by people, and our hope is that our user base primarily is composed of people who have an interest in teaching and presenting good quality content. But it will be also one of the focus topics for the SlideWiki Foundation that we will found after the project ends in 2018, to take care about such things. So there are different models. For example, reporting false content could actually lead to a moderator looking at the content, and if it's plain wrong, and you can read it up in every textbook, then we may introduce rules that say, look, if you present something that is plain wrong and everybody knows it, then we might delete this. Although this is a very delicate topic, because maybe it's just a controversial view on a certain topic, and then we shouldn't put ourselves into the position of the scientific referee, saying this is a much too wild theory. We have to delete this. So our philosophy against for such things is that we stop at where it's legally relevant. So if there's copyright infringement, it has to go away. And we also have our community law. So for example, it may be that people find it legitimate to post racistic theories there, but we take the right to remove them then, blatantly, because we run that platform. But we try to not go into the direction of really looking at, well, exactly, but try to make a cut there where it's legally relevant. But it's exactly it's an important question for all collaborative platforms.
Slides, you need to give this to students, and students will absorb one idea.
And if the idea is totally wrong and the class got the idea wrong, and it is already there in the mind,
yeah.
And it should be like a critical thinking that to rethink the situation. It takes time, but they have got slides, they have already absorbed it. And now you come next lecture and say, all I said before was totally wrong because I addressed the slides, it was wrong and so on. It means like, what are your positions as a teacher?
Yeah, so
who will trust you as a teacher then?
When we are talking about teachers, I have to, I think,
Sorry.
no, it's keep the microphone. I think I'm not enough. when it comes to teachers, our position is clear that if you teach something with material from SlideWiki, it's you to decide to show all those slides.
Right, I was in a hurry, I adjusted this before, I took the slides and finally one slide I say, no, I will never show it.
Yeah.
If I will be in good mood or not sleepy or not so tired, just like copy.
Yes, but that is up to you when you use the tool, right? That question touches another topic, and that is self-learners on the internet, and that is really a danger here, and that is where we have to look at creating mechanisms that, for example, show reputation of editors. One idea we had is that people can, for example, endorse somebody or create mechanisms like this where you have the ability to promote the content of somebody just because it's good, and that should be something else like popularity. So only quantitative measures, how many forks there are, and how many translations. But
Excuse me, or language help. Thanks.
Ну, я продемонструвала і покращити. Як я потім краще А ви писали, що ви Есть 4 тысячи. Побачили, я здається в першому місці.
Існує тільки без і без фотографії. Я перша закінувала, там
4 дальше было на диаграмме, показали теми первыми личностями, которые постоянно
мы не заважали.
Я зараз на конференції. Дивись, у нас тут бачиш пост-СС.
Может быть, это показать есть, кто-то его не знает, что может быть понижено. А если он будет у нас есть еще куча времени.
А ты все в порядке?
Не фиксируем.
Модель застосування цих засобів у навчанні.
Предметная область. Эта предметная область должна быть формализована. Так вот, у вас есть такая формальная модель, физическая предметная?
Тобто математична модель фізичного явища.
На предметной области, например, электричество, сам интернет. Это электричество как-то формально описывается. Единицы измерения, законы, элементарные модели, общая концепция.
Общая нет.
Вы уже защитили.
Я не поэтому защищаю.
А это ваша интерес, чем связано. Просто я представляю Херсонский университет.
Не-не-не, я маю на увазі.
Группы, которые работают в том же направлении. Вот даже один из руководителей группы
Хотелось бы поговорить. Скажем так, я недоліки своїх робіт знаю добре.
То, что они называют виртуальной физической лабораторией.
Так что прийти все научного виробництва. В принципе,
вот, давайте вы останетесь на это. Вот. И я вас познакомлю. У меня есть работа по математике.
Тут просто как, допустим, проаналізував все програмне забезпечення, прийшли до висновку, що доцільніше розробляти під кожну лабораторну свій програмний засіб окремо, тому що тоді в випадку чогось модернізувати чи доробляти щось одне.
Может быть.
Більше більш практичним.
Это едино. Например, те лабораторные работы, так это нужно не только в этой лабораторной работе, а чисто таких объектов
Лейкоцитальный индекс, гематологический индекс, индексовые лейкоциты, да. Много там написали всяких да, поэтому
можно
ну, это просто называю обычный анализ.
Но технически пока не все получается.
Взрослого человека. Ну, кроме этого, тут же, ну, самое важное, это те самые бумаги. А еще тут есть информация, можно снять. Вот.
Тоже начинали с магистратской. В этом году защищалась
интоксикации,
я знаю.
А вот именно наш этот рассчитал нам именно вот эти все индексы, и по ним, эти 6 параметров, и по ним получил результат по этим 6. Из анализа крови получилось вот 6 параметров, которые повлияют.
Анализ крови общий только достаточно.
Да, там есть формула, но просто у нас есть отдельная статья по медицине, там именно вот эти индексы, как они рассчитываются, там, как берутся вот эти показатели крови, у каждого индекс, какие из них куда вставляются эти плазматоциты, семенные ядерные, куда некоторые их формулах они входят как нейрофилы просто, не по отдельности, и там они считаются, ну, рассчитываются эти индексы. Они используются не только в инфекционных болезнях, я так поняла, что эти индексы, ну, как бы нас попросили построить математическую модель, статистику посчитать и сделать модульное приложение. Я как математик со сферой.
То есть это вот эта часть, да, вот фактически?
Да, вот это я делала, а это мой студент делает.
Ну, это приложение, да, уже по введенным.
Ну, могут быть именно по приложению.
По 10.
Потом получается,
это уже среднее, да?
низкая.
Достаточно большая вероятность.
Не знаю, она очень
50%.
но здесь просто такая очень
высокая уже, да. Ну да, вот же больше.
Просто они не бывают такими большими. Это уже смертельно. Но третий уровень уже все. В этом случае уже никто не спасается. Поэтому надо мыть руки всегда.
Это очень полезно прослушать это. Спасибо вам большое. А много времени забрало вот это вот исследование?
Ну, как бы, ну, мы более серьезно общаемся, поэтому это было не очень, ну, как мне было не сильно скучно. Я бы сказала, даже потому что если считать временные элементы, считывать
То есть с математической точки зрения построили модель быстро, а уже потом нужно было потратить время на...
Здесь была важность согласовать с медиками. Моя модель. А приложение по средним построению, приложение тоже, особенно на нынешнем, это уже как бы не первое. Сейчас мы сделали приложение для, вот сейчас могу показать, ну, как бы как калькулятор для создания, ну, вот вводятся параметры, там, если кому-то платят, параметры вводятся, и потом выводятся уже расчеты, которые должны создаваться, и по этим расчетам строится уже базисная оценка. То есть уже приложение научились делать, поэтому мы уже для нас...
А какой университет вы представляете?
Достаточно важно.
Да, собственно, державный университет. У вас понятно, у вас значительное количество серьезно.
Нет, ну мы занимались математикой, а это
перспективное исследование. Ну, с точки зрения того, как вы это сделали, это использовать для очень многих. Скажем,
ну, просто не все болеют.
Ну, слава богу, да. Это только по необходимости. Да, это даже я вижу. Еще самое
Допомога з цих зображень в доповненій реальності прив'язані певні віртуальні об'єкти. Відео, симуляції, 3D-моделі. Ну, це, власне, називається доповнена об'єктів фізичної реальності, прив'язані об'єкти віртуальні. Тобто тут, наприклад, є...
Які додаткові засоби потрібні, щоб їх подивитися? 3D там окуляри чи ще?
Ні. Лише смартфон. Власне, змінюється зображення.
Дуже працює. В даному випадку це після. Він може зупинити.
Може дивитися далі.
Так, у нас, власне, оскільки ми навчаємо одночасно, це такий фотодистичний курс астрономії, ми навчаємо одночасно і астрономії, і англійській мові. Ну, власне, тут такі об'єкти, як на відео, де там треба аудіювати, зокрема, ну і плюс там певні технічні речі. Ну, власне, ми скористалися тим, що так, що у нас спускали на хвилі цієї популярності.
А як реалізована ця технологія? Тут щось є, те, що дозволяє через смартфон подивитися?
Дивіться, ви на смартфон завантажите додаток.
Ага.
І, власне, в цьому застосунку розпізнається зображення як маркер. Так, ну, він вільний в App Store, там, в Google Play, тобто...
Це назва його, так?
Так. Ну, ви можете його знайти, так, є проблеми, там досить легко.
Потім він установлюється, наводиться на відповідно
на об'єкт. Єдине, дивіться, єдине, що треба підписатися на користувача, на вчителя. Ну, тому,
щоб зрозуміло ж було.
Так. І тоді він...
А підписатися яким чином потрібно?
Де
потрібно знайти цього користувача?
В додатку, в пошуку вводите ім'я користувача.
В пошуку ось тут?
Так, в самому додатку ви вводите, там нескладний по пошуку.
Тобто я ввожу, наприклад, прізвище, і він виводить, і я потім маю щось там, ну, відправити.
Як в соціальних мережах, це називаєте follow, ну, тобто слідкувати.
Тобто, фактично, це додаток App Store і плюс ім'я користувача, і далі, відповідно, я зможу інтерактивно дивитися.
Відповідно, всі, ну, власне, чому ми звісно користувача, тому що це я створюю ці маркери, до них прив'язую певні об'єкти, відповідно, ви можете будь-кого зафоловити, так, ну, але якщо ви хочете, власне, працювати з цим,
то я маю конкретно вказати, кого саме.
Мають розуміти так, що розпізнавання зображення будь-якого психологічного QR-коду, тому масив досить великий і без цього впізнаваність була б погана.
Як створюється безпосередньо ось цей доповнений реальність? Зрозуміло, це процедура, як ми можемо це подивитися.
Ви прив'язуєте об'єкти з певного списка, що 3D-моделі, посилання, зображення, відео, і наразі, власне, все.
Тобто пов'язати до певного, скажімо так, картинки,
наприклад. І ви завантажуєте картинку і кажете, що до цієї картинки буде прив'язано ось цей об'єкт. І відповідно там якось переключуєте. Власне, в принципі, так. В принципі, можна це вважати персилкою, це не зовсім є персилка, так?
Це може бути не один об'єкт?
Це може бути декілька об'єктів, і плюс ви пов'язуєте ті, які будуть пов'язані. Наприклад, ви там тапнули так на смартфоні, там двічі, можете пов'язати, щоб через якийсь час там відбувалося щось там, якийсь новий об'єкт, це може бути декілька об'єктів, може бути розміщені певним чином. Тобто ви самі це обираєте.
То за самою картинкою я можу зрозуміти, наприклад, що саме там я можу подивитись, чи відповідно...
Насправді це не має значення. Насправді це не має значення, можете до будь-якої картинки пов'язати що завгодно. Єдина вимога, щоб картинка була досить впізнавана. Тобто, якщо ви, скажімо, там просто чорний квадрат, так, то його, звісно, не знаю, щоб було досить багато деталей.
Ви тут написали, що вона розвиває 9 із 10 ключових компетентностей.
Мається на увазі ключові компетентності, це для учнів середньої школи. Вони відповідно прописані в стандарті, всього 10 і ось так, власне, яким чином, дивіться, мається на увазі комплексне використання і доповненої реальності, і комбінованого навчання англійського з астрономією. Тобто певні компетентності розвивають доповнену реальність, певні компетентності досягаються за рахунок комбінованого навчання англійського з астрономії. І разом це є 9 з 10, власне, окрім спілкування рідною мовою.
А як саме було визначено, що 9 з 10, тобто експериментальним шляхом? Чи, відповідно, вони просто призначені для того, щоб розвивати ці компетенції?
Насправді це експертна оцінка. Це експертне оцінювання.
Авторів цього дослідження?
Ні, опитування.
Опитування школярів, учнів?
Ні, експертне.
Експертів, тобто...
Викладачі, вчителі, більше викладачі, звичайно. І, власне, тут дані певні основні ідеї, яким чином вони можуть впливати на кожну з компетентностей.
Тобто це виходить, тут ви ще розписали компоненти. Це такі загальні виходи, це values, це значення чи цінності.
Це класика, так, відповідно, когнитивний, аксіологічний, аксіологічний та соціально-поведінкові компоненти.
Це можна назвати learning outcomes?
Дивіться, learning outcomes – це, відповідно, буде те, що в нас знаходиться в кожній комірці. Відповідно, а тут ми маємо власні компетентності та складові.
Тобто це все ж таки складові компетентності, це не навчальні результати.
Я имела в виду Доу Джонса и золото или нефти, также имеет фрактальную структуру. Естественно, при этом возникает...
Тобто це, як раніше ми називали, знання та вміння, щось таке?
Просто розписано згідно компетентності.
До нового...
Звісно, ми точно так же можуть написати, наприклад, знання, вміння та навички, тут, відповідно, ціннісний компонент.
Це soft skills, наприклад.
Soft skills, дивіться, якщо говорити в термінах навичок, в термінах skills, то soft skills на це виходить.
Самоподобных случайных процессов. Что такое монофрактал и мультифрактал? На самом деле ничего сложного. Мультифрактал – это статистически неоднородный фрактал.
Дивіться, це learning outcomes, вони всі в певній мірі learning outcomes. Наприклад, widening cross subject vocabulary. Це learning outcomes.
Имеет фрактальные свойства, но проявляется в различных неоднородных всплесках. Причем здесь у нас это массовое ожидание, мы видим, что это более неоднородно, потому что перепады у него с помощью каскадных процессов. Вот. То есть у нас есть модельная реализация, которая позволяет нам построить мультифрактальные временные ряды с заданными мультифрактальными свойствами.
То есть вы генерировали?
Да, мы генерировали на самом деле. А для того, чтобы в дальнейшем... Да, значит, существуют различные подходы к классификации временных рядов. Но нигде, я нигде не видела, не рассматривается, чтобы классифицировать по фрактальным свойствам, по фрактальным особенностям. И мы могли продуцировать временные ряды. Главной характеристикой фрактальных временных рядов является показатель Хёрста. Он изменяется от 0 до единицы, и мы могли генерировать временные ряды Хёрст от 0,5 до единицы. В зависимости от значения показателя Хёрста изменялись мультифрактальные свойства. Это у нас модельные временные ряды. И классификация заключалась в том, что каждый класс – это набор сгенерированных временных рядов с одинаковым значением показателя Хёрста. 0, на самом деле у нас было 0,51, чтобы мы от крайних оттолкнулись. Вот. Набор этих рядов. И с помощью машинного обучения, а именно с помощью алгоритмов деревьев решений, мы показали, что классифицируется достаточно хорошо.
Именно по фрактальному.
Именно по значениям показателя Хёрста. Это можно, но данные наши, то, что мы генерируем каскадные временные ряды, эти временные ряды генерируются с помощью биноминальных консервативных каскадов. Там участвует характеристика такая, как... Ну, в общем, у нас получается генерировать от 0,5 выше.
Тогда я еще хочу задать вам один вопрос.
Нет, пожалуйста. Не-не-не, вы правильно спрашиваете все по основным точкам.
Такой вопрос, понимаете? Вы смоделировали. Вот
Да, временной ряд.
Теперь вы знаете уже его свойства, теперь вы используете свои алгоритмы для того, чтобы классифицировать и как бы верифицировать.
Мы не используем свои алгоритмы, мы берем стандартные алгоритмы классификации и показываем, что это действительно можно сделать.
И оно совпадает с тем, что вы заказываете,
да?
Вот для этого.
Да, для этого, потому что у нас дальше задумка какая.
Потом вы будете брать природные,
вот, и мы хотим, да, и вообще, да, мы хотим что? Если мы знаем фрактальные свойства, значит мы можем смоделировать такие временные, и мы можем, ведь когда мы берем настоящие ряды, их мало, к ним подойти с помощью машинного обучения, машин-лернинг не получается. Но если мы сможем дополнить или заменить, вот, это вот наша большая задумка туда вперед.
Интересно.
Применение, да, фактически начиная от диагнозов по энцефалограммам, вот, то есть у меня там есть показано, что когда лично мы делали, у нас есть набор временных рядов крысок. Крыска спит быстро, крыска бодствует. Когда-то, Бог знает, в каком 2000 году это было собрано, крысок нету, но есть энцефалограмма. Их было 100 штук, когда было. Да, 100 штук, из них, допустим, 20-30, когда в разных стадиях сна. И мы показали, что они имеют принципиально разные мультифрактальные характеристики, которые определяются в том числе показателем Хёрста. Для бодрствования Хёрст от 0,7 и выше, для такого сна медленного, там, не помню, 0,5-0,6 и антиперсистентных, меньше Хёрст, меньше 0,5 для третьего вида. То есть, по крайней мере, многие физиологические состояния характеризуются сигналами с разными фрактальными свойствами.
То есть это было для медицины?
Да. В экономике мы имеем финансовые временные ряды, которые характеризуются различными фрактальными и мультифрактальными свойствами. Раз мы можем моделировать, значит мы можем хотя бы вариативно, рассчитать различные вещи вариативно, предусмотреть. Да?
Это уже задача программирования.
Да, но классифицировать. Вот пришел временной ряд, к какому классу относится поведение допустим, данного финансового показателя. Да, то есть это же задачи, любые задачи классификации, которые связаны с временными рядами и которые обладают фрактальными свойствами. Да, это можно делать в реальном времени. То, что мы...
Возникает сразу вопрос, а почему?
Thank you.